Hey, I'm Mike, and this is what I did last week. My warrior started the week off at 616.18 item level and is ending it at 620.25, so a difference of 4.07. For the Great Vault, I had all normal bosses, 4 dungeons at I think like tier 7, and then 8 tier 8 delves. This is probably my weakest vault to date. There weren't many big upgrades. Of the couple of upgrades that I did have, there was some jewelry that was a better item level in heroic track, which could replace champ or veteran gear, but the stats were not what I needed. The sims weren't that great either, so what I ended up doing was just taking the heroic quick wick candlestick, and that just replaced the champion version of that same trinket. I also didn't realize that the shoulders that I already had equipped were heroic, so I went to the catalyst and made those tier shoulders, which gave me my 4-piece. Throughout the week, I was upgrading gear as I could because I was doing some mythic pluses, which I'll talk about shortly, and then I ended up getting heroic gloves from the raid, and then that finished out my entire tier set. This week's vault should be much better and probably my best vault to date, because I ran 8 Mythic Plus dungeons this week and I got my rating from 1936 to 2068, a difference of 132, and I got Keystone Master. To get a 2000 rating, I had an untimed 8 Siege of Borealis, a timed 7 in Mists, Necrotic Wake, Dawnbreaker, and City of Threads, a 6 Grimbatol and Arakara, and a 5 Stone Vault. So not really that bad. I feel like it was a lot easier this expansion to get KSM, and the requirements for it were lower, which I personally like. This week for the dungeons that I ran, I timed an 8 in Borealis, Mists, Necrotic Wake, City of Threads, and Dawnbreaker, and I also timed a 7 Mists and 7 City of Threads. That'll give me 2 623 options in the vault today, and then the last option should be I think a 616 because of the 7s that I ran. Overall this week Mythic Plus wasn't that bad, but City of Threads in particular was the very difficult dungeon for me. I think I ran it 3 times at a +8 before I finally timed it for the 4th run. In those earlier 3 groups, we always got to the last boss, usually with plenty of time left, and then we would just sit there wiping over and over and over again. I think the longest group that I had on there was 30 minutes over time before we finally disbanded. Tyrannical as a whole sucks, I don't like it, and I think that last boss, especially with the amount of damage that goes out for the Terror Slam, whatever it's called, that was hectic and just not fun to deal with. And having run it a few times this week, I really do think this has taken the top spot for my least favorite dungeon, at least in this expansion or this season. Because Necrotic Wake overall isn't bad, it's just a very tight timer. Mists of Turn of Scythe just has that second boss that's the worst, and everything before and after that is fine. But this dungeon just sucks. Every single boss is a pain in the ass. The first boss, you have that very small circle to stand in, and then just really annoying, almost insta-kill mechanics. The second boss isn't really that bad, I guess. It's probably the best one in that dungeon. But on Tyrannical, even that fight can be really difficult. Third boss has some really weird camera angles, and then just so much damage going out, as well as a heal absorb. But then that last boss, like I said, there's just a lot of damage going out the entire fight. I don't know if Fortified and Tyrannical swap every week or every other week, but I'm looking forward to seeing this dungeon when it's not Tyrannical because I don't recall it being this annoying at lower keys. I'm curious to see at a higher key, non-Tyrannical, how bad it is. Another particularly fun dungeon this week was Necrotic Wake. I ran that twice on a +8, did not time the first time and did time the second one. The first group I was in, we got to the last boss with plenty of time left. We're doing the fight, we get to around 50% health, and I'm making my way back from the ad. I'm being carried back onto the main platform. As I land back with the group, I land on a swirly that explodes pretty much the same time that my feet touch the ground. So I instantly die. Another DPS gets sent down to the ad, and I guess they also got hit by a swirly as soon as they landed, so then they die. And then suddenly this very timeable dungeon became not timeable at all. So that was pretty annoying, but definitely not as soul-crushing as those City of Threads groups that I was in. Outside of that, what is also going to help my vault is the fact that I did Heroic Nerebar Palace. I got the Ahead of the Curve achievement, which is always nice to have. Overall, there wasn't really that much of a difference mechanically, at least not as far as I noticed. I definitely do still think Rashanon is probably one of my favorite fights, as well as Queen Ansarek. I really like those 2 fights together. And then as I mentioned, I did the 8 tier 8 delves for the vault slots, which I don't know if I'll be needing those slots much longer. I'll still be running Bountiful Delves, but I think I'll be running them at a lower key, just to finish them quicker, just because at this point 616 gear is not really helpful for me. But one of the things I was really happy about that I did is that I completed my first tier 11 delve. I went into the Underkeep. I went very slowly, very steadily. As often as I could, I would just pull 1 mob at a time. I ended up getting to the last boss, pulled him, got him to about 50% health, at which point Bran started taking aggro and then just casually walked out of the room and reset the fight. So I had like a 5-second fit of rage because that was really annoying, and I was like, of course the next pull I'm definitely going to die now. But fortunately, the next pull killed it without any issues, and with that I got the final achievement to complete a tier 11 delve with lives remaining, but also because I did not die throughout the entirety of the delve, I got the Immortal Spelunker title and Feat of Strength. So I was pretty happy about that. I just need to do all the other tier 11s to get the achievement to do all of them with lives remaining. I did try Kriegvalls at one point and got pretty upset pretty quick, so I will go back to that maybe this week or next. Apart from my warrior, I of course played my hunter a bit more. He started the week at 571.56 and is ending it at 579.43, so a difference of 7.87. I was able to get the 2500 conquests earned achievement, so that way I could buy the Forged Gladiator bow. And there's a few more gladiator pieces I bought him. I think I did the chest, legs, and boots. And then just PvP'd intermittently. I think there was one day where we just were rolling the horde, and then I tried a few times on the weekend to play, and we were just getting stomped. So that was particularly frustrating, but overall I am still having a blast. I am trying to get fully decked out in gladiator gear. I'm also still trying to get better at playing the class, and I don't know, I just need to like find another person that plays Hunter or like read some guides or something like that, because for example, there was one battleground that I was playing where there was a paladin who had the flag or whatever, and I was just fighting him by myself for like 3 minutes. And I don't think I ever dropped his health below like 85%. I need to do a little bit of research to try to learn how to play the class better. And then apart from that, I was leveling a couple of alts. I was continuing my Earthen Prot Pally, as well as leveling my mage a bit. But that kind of leads me into the 20th anniversary event that is happening starting today. I'm pretty excited about this. The one thing I'm not really looking forward to is the different currencies. I kind of skimmed the Wowhead article or the blue post about that, and it was very confusing. So hopefully it's not that bad of a grind, and hopefully it's not really that hard to get all the stuff. But one of the things I'm looking forward to is the 10% buff, as well as the additional 10% buff that you can get for like 12 hours, so in total 20%. That'll of course make leveling easier, and then with the actual like get level 80 on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters, that'll get those achievements unlocked, which stacks even further. And then also when Darkmoon Faire comes around in November, that'll be an additional 10%, so I feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunities to have plenty of experience bonuses. So my goal by the end of the anniversary event is to have my Earthen Prot Pally leveled up to 80, my mage leveled up to 80, as well as my Orc Resto Shaman leveled up to 80. The Pally and the Shaman are going to be just mainly to get the achievements to finish the dungeons on Mythic with different roles. I'll definitely be open to leveling more alts, it's just those are the 3 that I would primarily like to focus on. And then whatever else kind of just interests me as the event is going on, maybe level 1 or 2 more. Moving into the achievements of the week, I started at 41,490 points and I got 100 more, so I'm ending it at 41,590. I got a handful of PvP achievements, including Resource Scavenger, which is to open a war crate in all the Dragonflight zones, Airborne Tumbler, which is to dismount 50 people with Whirling Surge, which is just a funny achievement and gives the Sky Surge title, Finder's Keepers, which is to open 10 war crates in Dragon Isles, the Emerald Dream Tour of Duty achievement, which is to get 1000 honor in the zone. That's the last zone that I needed in Dragonflight, so I just have the BFA zones left for the Tour of Duty achievements. I captured a crystal in Deep Hall Ravine. I completed the I Got the Keys achievement, which is to open 50 bountiful chests in Delves. I thought that was the last one, but there's actually another one after that, and then another one after that, which is to open 500 of these. So there might be a lot of bountiful Delves in my future. I completed the Many Echoes achievement, which is to do 25 World Soul memories. And then I finished up the A Star of Dorn achievement, which is to unlock all the perks for the theater troupe. This is just renown based, and it's the last achievement that I needed in the exploration tab, so I am done with all of the War Within exploration achievements. I'm very excited about that. And then lastly, I got to the max renown with the remaining Severed Threads people, but the achievements are bugged, so I didn't get those, but whenever those get fixed, hopefully today, I'll get all 3 of those achievements at the same time. Not a lot of mounts this week. Of course, like I said, I got Keystone Master, so I got the Diamond Mech Suit. I kind of like this. I just hope that this isn't the one and only model this entire expansion, and there's different models, not just recolors. And then because I got Renown 23 with Assembly of the Deeps, I bought the Cyan Glowmite for 11.3 thousand Resonance Crystals. And other news, I watched a few horror movies this week because it's the season of spooky. All my feeds have been pretty much littered with Terrifier recommendations, so I finally watched All Hallows Eve, which is like the prequel to that. It was low budget, wasn't really that interesting, had a couple of creepy parts, especially the ending actually, that was kind of weird. And then I watched Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2. If you don't know, they star Art the Clown, which is a murderous clown. These movies are quite gory, not as gory as I actually expected based off some of the reviews, but still probably one of the most gory things I've ever seen. I won't do any spoilers, but in the first movie, the Upside Down Girl, and then in the second movie, the Home Invasion. That one in particular, by the end of it, I thought I was looking at like a Cannibal Corpse album cover. It was just disgusting. And honestly, I think this clown might be one of my new favorite, if not my favorite horror villain of all time. I just love the way that he looks. I love that corpse paint inspired makeup. And there's a lot of comedy elements in these movies, like when he's killing people, he's like dancing or like just being silly. Or like in the second movie when the girl is buying the costume in the shop and he's trying on different glasses. Plus his executions are just brutal. I haven't seen Terrifier 3 yet, but I've heard good things and I've heard that it is still quite gory. So I'll watch that eventually, but yeah, Terrifier, both those movies. The first one was okay, the second one was a little bit longer than I would have liked, but overall, still fine. And then the last movie I watched was Sinister, which is a movie that people were saying was like incredibly creepy and terrifying. It's about a guy who moves into a house where a bunch of murders happened, and he's writing a book on those murders, and he's trying to figure out what exactly happened, because in all the murders, the family died except for one, the child, who is now missing. And of course, because he moved into the house where these specific murders happened, things happen. It wasn't really that scary, it was more of like a thriller with horror elements thrown in, but I did like it because it felt like it was giving me information at a decent pace and making it more and more interesting for me. And I think like the reveal or the concept at the end is really cool. There's apparently a second movie, so I'll probably check that out maybe this week or next, but that movie was overall decent. But that is everything that I did last week and all the things that I wanted to talk about. Let me know what's going on in your world of Warcraft, in real life. What did you watch? What did you listen to? How is it going? If you're already subscribed to my channel, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Love you lots. If you're not subscribed and you like this video, if you could at least consider it, I would really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. Have yourselves a terrific week. I will talk at you next week. Love you. Bye.